connecting us with you all, and I'm very happy to be here to talk about the program. I think it is a great opportunity. So I will just share my screen and hopefully you can see the slide there. Is it visible?
I see it.
Perfect. Okay. All right, great. So, yes, thank you for this. This is our Career Connect splash page portal link. You can get to it. I'll give you a copy of this presentation to share with everyone if you don't already have something similar. So Career Connect, I'm going to just go off camera real quick so I don't distract myself either. So Career Connect is Governor Lamont and the General Assembly's $70 million investment into a short-term training program. We want to empower and support people into pathways that lead to meaningful careers. We're offering no-cost training and placement in a number of growing industries, like, of course, manufacturing and healthcare, clean energy and construction, CDLs, human service training, IT, and a lot of other industries, including bioscience. So we're talking opportunities for new work for folks and improved income, new job skills, industry recognized credentials, and pathways, career pathways for sustaining wages. So the Career Connect program is really focused on supporting historically marginalized communities. Every program intent is to have that equity lens and have that philosophy throughout our programs. As a matter of fact, recently, I'll have to find the magazine, but we were recognized on a national level for our Career Connect programs and our focus on equity. So this is just some examples of where our Career Connect grantees have focused opportunities in their programming for people. Our program goals: to implement a statewide best practice short-term workforce training systems approach. So in the workforce development system, of course, we do have 5 regions in Connecticut. And each of the workforce development boards are responsible for the strategy within their regions and the opportunities to provide for folks within the public workforce system. And Career Connect is really look to try something different and cross borders and offer all opportunities, no matter what region you live in, to depending on what your interests are and what we'd like to do. So this is really, if you're not necessarily in workforce development, this is like a really new thing and that we're really excited about. We're looking to empower, support, and train 6,000 people in career pathways. We're talking, and again, industry recognized credential attainment, good wages, and career advancement opportunities. We have a single statewide recruitment portal that everybody knows about now, Career Connect, where folks come in and register and get connected to programs. We've launched a comprehensive marketing campaign to try and reach communities in a variety of ways. And maybe you've seen social media ads, or you've seen, some of our advertising on, bus shelters or in the cities in different places, TV, radio, things like that. And then we really want to track outcomes. We're looking at 3 years post completion, which isn't typical of some of our more standard workforce programs, but we really want to know where folks are and how this training has impacted folks. So the program components, there's a skills inventory or assessment that is part of the registration process, which I'll show you in a few minutes. It is required for every applicant, and that informs providers of, you know, where folks are so that we can help them where they need it. There is remediation services for, you know, that are offered by all of our program operators. But that is an important piece and part of the registration. A complete registration would include a completed skills inventory. And as I've mentioned already, you know, they're short-term certificate programs. Typically the curriculum can be anywhere from 4 to 24 weeks, some are longer depending on the program. And they can, you know, it can go on even as potentially like 18 months, but most of the programs are pretty short term. Our program operators, our workforce boards, and our community-based organizations that are part of our Career Connect programming can deliver full supportive services as needed. So they assess, again, where folks are and what is needed, and can provide, you know, a wide variety of supportive services. That is one of the nice aspects of the American Rescue Plan funds that fund this program, there is broad use in terms of our supportive services. Employability skills training, those soft skills, resumes and interviews, and all of those types of skills are embedded into every program. So career readiness as well. We got the industry recognized credentials at the end. And I think what everybody, you know, really at the end of this looking for are, we have employer commitments to hire. Every one of our grantees has employer commitments. So that means job placement services and job placement at the end of their programs. So that was obviously an very important piece of all of this. So
I have it.
In terms of eligibility, we're talking about folks that are unemployed or underemployed, those whose wage or their salary earned previously doesn't match the same level of their education or previous experience, or they've only, you know, obtained episodic short-term part-time employment. Documentation, you know, participants must be able to provide one of the following pieces of identification as well. So we're looking for folks that can that are legally eligible, legally allowed to work in the United States. So we have some success stories here. I won't go into this, but I'll give you the presentation. You can read a little bit about that. These are, you know, these are like a quarter old or so. We'll have many more coming up, but we've had great, you know, successes so far. This is the splash page I mentioned. This is the entry into the portal so that you know you're on the right page, and all you need to do is click on register to start. And a little bit about the portal. So there's a self-service piece of this where somebody registers and they build their profile. You know, the AI that's built into the portal will analyze the skills and the interests and the needs depending on, you know, what how someone has, you know, filled out their registration. Somebody will complete that assessment, that skills inventory. And then after that, there'll be an assignment to a workforce partner. So somebody from our, you know, one of our program operators, our grantees will go in, and depending the algorithm will help them, you know, choose the folks that they need to get and start working with someone. So someone will start working with an individual from one of our programs to connect them with a case manager who's going to do the more deep dive with someone. That person will help the individual enroll in a suitable training program and connect them with other services, and then of course match to a local employer. So this is the once you start to register, This is like the home screen where you first fill out your information. Your location is just your town and your zip code, a phone number. You can opt to have someone contact you by your cell phone number. If you prefer email, that is fine as well. And then you have an option to either upload a resume, and the system will analyze what you have on your resume and help to further set up your profile. You can add your own experience or no experience, and they'll take it from there. Once you've either entered your experience, your education, or you've uploaded a resume, you'll get a skills profile. And this profile you can tweak as you need. So you can remove things, you can add skills. If you do upload a resume, you'll get like a comprehensive list of all types of skills that you can tweak and update in your career passport. So there's a few other registration questions. Like I said, you can choose to have someone contact you by phone. When I first registered and made my test account here, I was contacted several times. So you can, and I didn't do it, and I should have, but put test after your first and last name so that our program operators know that you're a test account. You can even use this account to demonstrate to other people, and I'll give you instructions on how to do that too. So if you have a preferred industry, you can select that here, but you don't have to, because someone from Workforce Development Board will reach out and help you figure that out. Again, employment status. Eligibility is a self-attestation. So there is a document that one of our program operators will provide once you've been connected with someone, a self-attestation about your whether you're working, not working, underemployed, that kind of thing. Okay, so more questions about your education or certifications. Were you referred by an employer? Were you referred by one of our grantees, our program operators? What agency or community organization referred you? So our Career Connect grantees are doing their own outreach as well, and the recruitment. So often they'll start working with somebody right away, and we'll then refer them to the portal to register. And so they'll select who they're working with from there. And this is the page, the next step to go into the skills inventory. The skills inventory is 16 questions. And you can take that too if you would like to. And again, if you're going to register, put in test after your name. So the folks administering the test and get the results know that that you're a test account. So once you've registered, this is your career passport, as it's called. You'll notice that the skills inventory, they put that in a couple of different places. If somebody hasn't taken it yet, there's a couple places where I circled in red right there, where there's a reminder that that's your next step. Because if someone isn't contacted by one of our Career Connect programs, it's typically because the skills inventory piece was missed. So we definitely need to have that done. But you can see from this page, and I'll step through a little bit of this. This is the home page. Again, you can build your work experience. You can add more. You can upload your resume, put in your own education there as well. Identify your interests. This is your career path. So I had indicated I was interested in being a sales rep. So what the system did was kind of analyze what I had done, and then chose some skills that I might have and what I need. And then it recommended in the learning section, it recommended a course that's currently in our learning library of all of the online, all of the courses, I should say, that are available. So this one, the system selected based on my preferences what I'm interested in. But if you look up on the top right here, there's a little purple link that says view all courses, and you could view all the courses that are available by our Career Connect programs right now that are in the system. So you can view those as well. The resources page, and you notice I circled down at the bottom there, it says my next step, take that skills inventory that's required. So that's another area of a reminder. But the recommended resources for you, this is just part of a screenshot of like a long list of various resources that are available to people. So I encourage you to register and take a look and view those as well. And you can view all resources. So again, the system recommends maybe some that might be good for me. And then you can view all of the ones that we have listed in there so far. We're adding resources as we all the time as we come across them. And it connects to work. So you can search for work. This connects to Indeed. And there's an opportunity to just kind of search for work like a typical job board would, by job type, by radius, or remote work. And as I mentioned, I encourage you to create a demonstration account if you like, or just to experience it for yourself, or to be able to demonstrate it to someone else. Use the word test after your first and last name, add your resume, and explore. And you can redo your registration again. You can start it over again. So you can wipe out everything and then do it again so that you can demonstrate. So when you do sign in, you can click on the top right corner where the little person icon is, and you can click on account. And then I put a red arrow because it's not easy to see, but it says redo onboarding on that little tiny link there. So click on redo onboarding, and it doesn't wipe out your username and your password, but it will remove everything else. So you can start over again. So you can show that you could show someone how this works. So we do have a newsletter because we like to let folks know about what's happening in Career Connect, what we're doing. We have employer testimonials, we have spotlights for success stories and things like that. So this is a link. Again, I'll send this to you and you can subscribe to the newsletter if you like. We like to always include some kind of data for this particular issue. We had a couple of resources. We had Connecticut Food Share we worked with, and the Diaper Bank too gave us a presentation. And we, again, are collecting pretty significant amount of data. And so Jonathan Richter, who's our research analyst, puts together great information to report to the Governor's Workforce Council, to the Governor's office, to everyone on what we're doing in Career Connect. And this is our flyer, and I'd be happy if you'd like to have this flyer and post it. I can share this with you as well. This is kind of our general flyer. It has a QR code that will bring you right to our landing page to be able to register in the portal. So when I send this presentation to you, I will also include the flyer as well. So that is like the basics of the program, the general overview of the program itself. And, we are really excited to be partnering with the Department of Health on the rental assistance initiative. And Marina and I have been working long and hard. Poor Marina, especially, she's been conducting training for our program operators to get them going on everything that they need to know and do to be able to work with individuals, assess needs, and apply for the rental assistance. So, Marina, I don't know if you have anything to add there, but it's a
Karen,
great, yes.
I was gonna say, before we go to Marina, I just wanted to, there was a couple questions in the chat.
Oh, sure.
About the programs. One was around, are the trainings virtual or in person, location specific? I think the answer to that is, it depends on the training, but I thought I'd let you answer.
Oh, it does. You know what? I will send, because I think this will be helpful, but when I send you the presentation and the flyer, we also have like a desk reference with registration information and like a summary of every program for all 19 programs. There are 19 that we're running here, what their like occupations or industries are targeting, and whether the program is in person, a hybrid, or online. So it really does depend. And you know, like for instance, our IT training is all online, all remote. We have another program called Remote Works, also obviously online training. We do have some too. The Connecticut Center for Advanced Technology does some advanced manufacturing training, and that is actually an option. You could do in person, you could do a hybrid, you could do all remote. So it really does depend, but I do have that on the desk aid. So
Awesome.
I'd be happy. It's very helpful. I know we needed it initially too. So
yeah, I think it will be.
And the locations too. We have the locations on there.
Perfect, because I know that some of the, you know, everyone has different needs. And so where some trainings are 100% virtual, that might not work for some people. So I think having that in front of them will be really helpful.
And I will say too, that like the major, like each of the workforce boards is a lead on a particular industry, and they all have agreements with each other to provide these programs. So that's where I was talking about like the borderless kind of opportunities. Whether it's healthcare, manufacturing, green energy, you know, that kind of things, IT. So they're all working with each other so that someone for the major in-demand industries, someone would not necessarily, you know, wouldn't be limited to a particular region to be able to take that training. So awesome. They're working closely together to make that happen.
So that might answer the next question I see in the chat, which is, how do people connect to the local workforce boards through this program? And so again, I think industry training specific, but how would you answer that question?
I would answer that by, it would be by industry. It would also be by their location. So unless, so if you, when you're registering, when the participant is registering, if they choose an industry, and they, you know, obviously have their location. You saw I had shows at Hartford. They will receive contact from their local workforce development board. Mm-hmm. So unless in the registration, there was a referral, like were you referred by a community-based organization, you don't have to respond to that. If you just leave it with the industry, you know, and you have your location in there, you could choose the workforce development board if you knew what that was, but otherwise the algorithm basically provides the referrals to the correct workforce development board to get connected for somebody to work with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jennifer there's another question in the chat around Career Connect not listing all AJC and workforce board specific programming. And that is because Career Connect does not encompass all. Those things do exist. People can go to their local workforce boards and access all of those local trainings, but Career Connect is a specific subset of programs. So I don't know if you want to go into any more detail on that or add anything there.
Yeah, yes, I can add more detail. I know, you know, I mean, we would love to have all programs within here. However, being connected to a local workforce board will connect you to other programs. So you may be interested in Career Connect and maybe there's something here for you, but if there isn't, you've got that connection with your local services. So maybe maybe WIOA is a better fit, or maybe there's another program that makes more sense. So, you know, they can help, you know, kind of triage that when you connect with someone. So yes, Career Connect is its own program funded by ARPA, you know, the rescue plan funds, but connecting with the Workforce Development Board does provide someone with access to more program opportunities.
Great. And then last question, and then I think a lot of the rest are for you, Marina, is in terms of the Career Connect programming, how do they assist individuals who have limited computer skills? So no, Karen, if you have thoughts on that.
So the limited computer skills, I imagine that when they are connected with someone from the workforce board, they will, you know, help provide access to that, whether it's the American Job Center or some other opportunity. I know many of them do have like basic computer skill assistance or courses and things like that. So I know that's always a challenge, always will be. So I would have someone connect with them first. And, you know, depending on what the program is, that may not be, you know, and anyone at the American Job Center, of course, can help someone complete a Career Connect, you know, application or registration. But, and then, you know, if you're working with someone and you want to, you know, again, I encourage you to kind of try it out, and you can help folks there too. And I know, like I said, our grantees are doing their outreach and they are doing their own recruitment. And a lot of times I know many of them sit down with the folks that they're working with and help them complete the Career Connect application and the CT hires. That's the other piece of this that I really didn't mention in here, but CT hires is also a registration too that that will help us to track folks for that, you know, when we want to follow them 3 years down the road. The CT hires account will help us do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Karen. And
oh, my pleasure.
Any other questions that come up, people, please add it in the chat. I could always circle back to Karen after the fact and we can get everything out. And just a reminder for everyone, I know that many of us maybe have learned, some of you have learned about this for the first time because of the rental assistance portion, and we'll definitely now turn it over to Marina to talk a little bit more about that. But this is an open training program, you know, opportunity for people who want training, want help finding a job. And so anyone you're working with, whether they need rental assistance or not, Career Connect is a great opportunity. So I'll share out the slides after the fact. Thank you for people putting your emails in the chat. And then again, we'll follow up with you, Karen, if there's any additional questions on the Career Connect side.
That'd be great. I know when I send out the desk reference with the description of all the programs, you'll see, like I see someone asked about a criminal background. We have reentry programs too. So I think that'll answer a lot of questions as well.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Thank you. So Marina, I'm sure you have the questions in the chat. So why don't we turn it over to you to give an overview of the Unite CT piece, and then if we can dive into any specific questions that maybe don't get addressed in your.
Okay, perfect. To set this all off, you guys, I have a PowerPoint presentation, which I will be sending you. We also have an FAQ that we have on a Google Doc where I add people's questions on a daily basis to the bottom. So I'll send that to you all as well. It's intended for our internal staff at the workforce board or the CBOs, but I think the more information, the merrier. There's no one's private information on there. So you can have the access to that as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. I want to do a quick mindset shift though, because Karen talked a lot about Career Connect, and this rental assistance, yes, is tied to Career Connect, but it's also a little bit broader than that. We have and have given access to the boards and the community-based organizations, CBOs, who are grantees of Career Connect. They have access to our portal. They are submitting applications on behalf of tenants. those staff members also work with other tenants who are enrolled in other federally funded workforce training programs that can submit those tenants for rental assistance as well. So like WIOA, et cetera. So I just want
to pause for a second there because that's a shift, right? So
it's a shift, and I want to
that. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So these staff members, again, at the workforce boards and at the CBOs who are Career Connect grantees can submit their tenants for rental assistance, the ones who are in Career Connect. But if there's other workforce federally funded training programs that these tenants are in, they can be submitted to receive rental assistance as well. And I can say that in different ways. We'll have visuals.
I heard it. It's recorded. It's recorded.
Okay.
No going back.
Great. Okay. So I also want to know Natasha Dupont from DOH. She's on this call as well. We're managing this program together. So if I can't answer it or Natasha can answer it, we'll get back to you with an answer. All right.
So just to give an example for Marina, like that's like the WIOA program.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah,
got my
H1B. Somebody said SNAP. SNAP is, I think that is, SNAP E&T is with the community colleges. This would not include SNAP E&T. This is the the federal programs like WIOA that the workforce boards administer.
Cool. Thanks, Karen.
Yeah.
Okay, so without further ado, a general overview is that DOH has committed $30 million in the Unite CT funds that we still have remaining to specifically this workforce rental assistance program. Applications opened on June 12th of this year, and they will be closed on November 30th of this year. So time is of the essence. Get those applications in quickly. Tenants are eligible, and those may receive rental assistance for the times that they're registered in Career Connect or a federally funded program. So I can update this too to include not just Career Connect. And the way the payment structure works is that we administer 3 months of rental assistance at a time. And so if a tenant is in a training program that is longer than 3 months, they can recertify with their same case manager at the boards or the CBOs who submitted their original application. And I have a visual at the end to help describe this as well. I want to note here that unlike the Unite CT program, we are not paying rental arrears or rent that the tenant owes their current landlord. Only current and future rent, 3-month increments at a time. Okay, so step number 1, tenant needs to have a landlord who's willing to work with us. We ask the landlord for required documents such as ID, lease, W-9s, and we send the check only to the landlord, not the tenant. So tenant needs to have a landlord, and then tenant needs to register for Career Connect, or maybe they're already enrolled in another federally funded workforce program. These grantees, so in short, I'm going to say grantees throughout this presentation. When I say that, I mean the workforce boards or the community-based organizations. So step number 1 for them, they have a tenant has a landlord willing to participate. These grantees must fill out a screening tool so that DOH staff can make sure the tenant hasn't maxed out on Unite CT assistance in the past. These are the same Unite CT dollars that are tied to $15,000 or 12 months of rental assistance. So if a tenant has received that, let's say last year in 2022, they got $15,000 to pay off back rent, they cannot receive workforce related rental assistance. So step number 1 is these grantees are filling out a pre-screening tool so that DOH staff can just make sure and check that a tenant is eligible. And then we will, step number 4, send the grantees a notification saying, yep, you're good to go. You can start filling out this application process on behalf of the tenant. There are a couple of different parties. So this slide is intended just to make sure everyone has the same vernacular and understanding of who's who. So the grantees, the boards and the CBOs, they're filling out that screening tool. They are making sure that a tenant is enrolled in Career Connect or is enrolled in another one of those federally funded training programs. DOH staff, we don't have that data set, so we don't know. So the grantees are the ones doing that type of vetting. And they're working with the landlords, et cetera. DOH, we're screening for eligibility, and then Karen and her team from OWS, Office of Workforce Strategy, convenes folks and has that higher level response to those larger questions. So eligibility, this is the same as Unite CT. So we're going up to 80% of a tenant's area median income, or AMI. Like I mentioned before, they cannot have previously maxed out on Unite CT assistance. So 12 months, 15,000. And they have to be participating in some sort of federally funded program. It gets a little nitty, you all, I will admit that, but we tried our best to describe through this third bullet point here, who is eligible and who is not. So the intention is anyone who's actively registered, enrolled, and in their training program as of when this program opened June 5th is eligible. If they finished up their training program before that, and therefore they're no longer registered and in that training, they are not eligible to receive rental assistance. If on June 5th, a tenant had already started training, but their training continues and they have, their classes after June 5th, June 7th, 10th, after that, they're eligible. So just because they started before June 5th, that's okay. They can still receive rental assistance. It's just on June 5th and beyond, they needed to be enrolled in a training program or plan to enroll. And once they enroll, then they're eligible. And for the landlord, it's easy. They just must own their home. We don't do any subletting. Cool. Required documents, we try to make this as easy as possible. So from a tenant's perspective, they just need their ID and 4 weeks of income documents for each adult in the household. And this is great, if the tenant does not live in a qualified census tract. If the tenant lives in a QCT, if the tenant lives in a qualified census tract, we have wiped income requirements for this program. And speaking anecdotally, the majority of tenants who applied to Unite CT these past couple of years, they have lived in a qualified census tract. And so for those tenants, they would not need to submit income for this workforce rental assistance program. We've trained the boards, we're training the CBOs on how to check if a tenant lives in a QCT, so you all don't have to worry about that. But I can train you later if that's of interest. And then a lease, and then this template that DOH has created, we call it a landlord verification form. It's really straightforward. So let's say a tenant lives in a qualified census tract, they only really need to submit ID, that lease, and fill out a template called the landlord verification form. Pretty straightforward. From a landlord's perspective, we need either an ID or a business license, a signed W-9, and then the lease as well. Cool. Those are required documents. This is my last slide, which describes the two different ways a tenant would engage with the system. The first is registering for Career Connect. So register, right? They get assigned to a case manager in a couple days after they filled out, I'm blanking on the word, needs assessment, skills inventory. Sorry, Karen. They
No
fill
problem.
out.
Yeah, the skills inventory.
Okay, great.
Also known as assessment. We use it interchangeably, but really it's a skills inventory. Yeah.
Skills inventory. Thanks, Karen. So the tenant's filling out that skills inventory, then they're getting assigned to a case manager. That case manager has been trained by us, so they know what to do. They fill out the application. Our DOH team underwrites the file, processes the payment directly to the landlord. Once the case has been approved, the landlord gets a check within 10 to 15 business days. So that's it. And so 3 months at a time, right? And then lastly, right, if the tenant is not in Career Connect, they already have a case manager, right? Because they're part of either the boards or the CBOs, other federally funded trainings. Then they can submit an application, get those 3 months of assistance. Okay, those stars are talking about who's filling out this screening tool. Oh, sorry, I lied. This is my last slide. It's a visual to describe who is eligible for how many months of assistance. So how I like to think of it is the first tranche, the first 3 months of rental assistance is really broad. Tenant is registered for Career Connect. They're in some other training program. They apply, they get 3 months of assistance. The recertification is where it gets a little bit more nuanced in that the tenant needs to be attending their sessions. They need to be engaged. Whereas a tenant does not need to attend. If a tenant were to drop out for unfortunate reasons, they would still receive that 3 months of rental assistance at the beginning. And that's fine. But again, as we get farther along the timeline, they need to be engaged to be able to recertify once to get a total of 6 months, and maybe recertify again to get a total of 9 months. On November 30th, a tenant could submit a recertification and our team would review that and process it out. So maybe the tenant gets December, January, and February. So we will be processing applications and recertifications in the month of December. We just are not accepting any new applications after November 30th. So that's all I got for you. Our call center is the one to ask any sort of questions. They've been trained on this program. This is the number. If you have programmatic policy questions, I will send Kelly a link to the FAQ, the Google Doc, and it's cool. At the very top of the FAQ, I'll show you actually. There's a link to a survey where you can submit your questions there directly. I check that survey every morning and I add your questions to the FAQ at the bottom and I date it saying like June 27th, this new question came in, here's the answer. So that's the best way to ask your questions, not through email. Hold on, Kelly, I'm going to share my screen really quickly and show what this looks like, and then I'll pass it back to you.
Awesome.
So can y'all see the FAQ?
Mm-hmm.
This section here, if I click on it, it takes you to how to ask your question. So your name, your email, and then what's your question. Once you submit it, I'll see it and I'll add it to the very bottom of this FAQ. So as you can see, this document was last updated today. And those questions from today start here and go down. Cool.
Awesome. So there's a number of questions. So I'm just trying to, and thank you, Karen, for jumping in and responding to some of them. One question that's come up a few times is, will the program pay for rent or recertify them if they've completed the training, but they're still in the job search process?
Yeah. We're going to need to review those on a case-by-case basis, honestly. The program wasn't intended for that, but we have an appeals process and we have like an extenuating circumstance team. So.
Okay. And then another question, and this is actually something that came up when we had the first conversation with the backbone agencies around, you know, for people who are trying to exit the homeless response system, and maybe we have a landlord that's willing to work, and it's kind of that like they want a letter from you saying that if they have a you know, kind of the chicken or the egg conversation. And
yes,
we're going to go look into that. And so talk to us about if a person's trying to exit the homeless response system, what are the nuances there?
So our auditors have been trained to accept a lease that is contingent upon acceptance of this program. So a landlord doesn't have to create an official lease. They could say at the bottom, this lease is only valid if a tenant receives the workforce rental assistance program. That's okay. We will underwrite that and process the payment, right, if the tenant is eligible. Something that I didn't mention that Kelly, we had talked about was security deposits. Mm-hmm. So this program will pay up to 2 months security deposit that's not separate from the 3 months of rental assistance. For only new lease ups. We're not reimbursing folks if they've already paid for their security deposits, but if it's new, the landlord again creates this contingent lease and it acknowledges in the lease that there's up to a 2 month security deposit, it might be 1 month. This program can cover it.
Awesome. And then we had already talked about some of the other in terms of eligible programs. So why don't we turn, so I think I got most of the questions that are in the chat, or the ones that Karen didn't answer. So why don't we use the raise the hand feature? Does anybody have any additional questions that the team hasn't already answered?
And the security deposit piece, that's in the FAQ too. So if you want it in writing, you can see it
I
there.
was going to say, once we get that document and circulated, I think it will probably help as well, as also for those who weren't here today. But while we have you, like, now's the chance. I'll ask the questions.
I'm sorry if this is a silly question.
No such thing.
The screening tool for the rental assistance, is that different from the screening tool that was explained in the very beginning
Yeah.
for the actual, okay.
Great catch. I only describe the screening tool in the context of the rental assistance application so that you all have the language. If you were to call a call center and want a status update, etc., like, you'll know and can understand what the process is. But you all do not have any responsibility to submit tenants to the screening tool for the workforce rental assistance. That's just the boards and the CBS.
A question in the chat around, sometimes landlords want a promissory note of some type, and curious how Unite CT has been able to address that in the past. Or
Yeah. We, at least right now, don't have the capacity for that. If we do, I hear you loud and clear that that's something landlords would want. We just haven't embedded that into our workflow yet. But I can put a note to see if we have more capacity, if we can add that.
what else?
Great. That means
I know. Well, I was going to say,
That's
Jennifer,
good.
if you're still here, I know that you had a lot of questions. I hope we answered all of them that were in the chat, but just want to make sure we answered everything. Jennifer Pollock. She had many wonderful, detailed questions. So,
Devin, go for it.
Sorry, I have another one. And you may have answered this already, but when we're actually, so like, if the client is already connected to Career Connect and they're in their portal, is that where the actual like application is for the rental assistance?
It's different. It's in a software called Yardi, and the boards and the CBO staff are the only ones who have access to log into Yardi and submit an application. So separate from Career Connect, it's called Yardi, and that role that they have is called a tenant representative, because they basically submit on behalf of the tenant. Tenants do not submit their own rental assistance applications.
Okay, so me, as like us as a housing case manager would connect the client to Career Connect, and Career Connect would give them some kind of other case manager that would then apply for the actual rental assistance.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. This is something that I've just learned from being on all these Unite CT programs, is that a tenant needs a functioning email. We communicate with them through email. I know we talked about the digital divide. I know we talked about access to technology. That it's how our system is set up. And if we need additional information right before we're able to click process and pay, we send an email to the tenant. We also infrequently might give them a phone call, but that email address and phone number, as much as you can, advocate to your tenants for those to be updated, because we do use them. And when their case is approved, they'll get an approval letter.
Jamie?
Hi, this might be a ridiculous question, and forgive my ignorance on this, but I'm from Eastern Connecticut, and I see on the list for Career Connect, and I know that the manufacturing is the Career Connect program, but I'm wondering about, the folks that we work with that don't have transportation and they're interested in, say, nursing or human services. I know some of these are online programs, but I'm just wondering, like, are the folks that are in Eastern Connecticut, like, limited more to the manufacturing? Or I know you said they'd be connected to the local workforce board, but
Yes, and I mentioned that each of the workforce boards kind of led an industry, but they have agreements with each other to provide the other. So like Eastern, you know, EWIB could also provide a healthcare program. You know what I mean?
okay,
Or, you know, what are the other, like the green energy or some of the other ones. So they have agreements with each other and they're working with each other to provide referrals and provide programming in the other industries. So I know, you know, obviously, yeah, in the East, there's a, you know, they have the manufacturing pipeline and there's a big emphasis on that, but they can also provide other opportunities. And there are, again, supportive services out there and stipends, you know, many of them providing, you know, either cash stipends or transportation stipends and things like that to help somebody while they're in training too.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions before we head out? Awesome. So in terms of next steps, I will get slides and all the materials we talked about from Karen and Marina and make sure that those get circulated. What I'll probably do is I'll send it to those who attended, but also all of the CAN backbones so then they can send it out to all of their regional partners. And I would say, you know, I think there's lots of opportunity here from the diversion side of people coming to our front door that want to work, are working, and this is an opportunity all the way through to be able to help people who want to work and need help with their rental assistance. So I know that there will be more local conversations about how to utilize this program, but let's just give it a try. I would just say that Marina and Karen have been absolutely wonderful about taking questions and feedback and all of those things. So I think let's give it a go, and then we can always touch base again and see if we have any issues or questions that come up.
Sounds like a great plan. Thank you so much, Kelly.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Thanks,
You
everyone.
too.
Nice to meet
Thank
y'all.
you.
Bye-bye.